as you can see right there, it's actually started drying up and caking up already. When it fully dries up, it looks like it actually looks solid. It becomes solid when it fully dries out. And if you haven't done this to your CPU for 2 years, you might have like a solid core crust of goop there. Hey guys, Plasma here. This is a separate video cut out from the 4090 installation, but I figured I'd do this separately and just lay it out here for those folks who want to see it. I did gain 10% in heat improvement. This is pretty important that you should do this every 2 years at least. Well, first off, there's no dust, which is a good thing, but I'm going to remove the clips from my fan right here on both sides. This is a Noctua heat sink and fan solution, which are the best in the market. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take off the entire heatsink by removing a couple of screws. Now the reason I need to do this is because I want to re-goop my CPU. The CPU has a heatsink on top of it, and because no piece of metal is perfectly smooth, to improve the heat transfer, there's thermal paste that's applied. So this should be replaced every year or two, because otherwise it'll dry out and stop conducting heat as well. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to remove the screws and go from there. Alright guys, so I've released these 2 screws. You got to unscrew them slowly. That's for Noctua heatsink. You might have different screws, but never unscrew just one screw. Unscrew them in equal force from both sides. That one's not fully out. There we go. Oh, come on. So it's released. So here is the back of the heatsink, and here's our CPU. And as you can see, it's not bad, but I'm gonna apply some more goop on there and make sure it's good. Now to remove the old goop from the heatsink and from the CPU, I'm going to use some rubbing alcohol. I'm just going to wipe it down and then I'm going to reapply. So let's do that. Alright guys, so back into our heatsink. So I've got some of my sterilization pads. As long as I don't have any microfibers or anything that's not going to dry up nicely like alcohol, wipe it completely down, make sure it's nice and shiny. There you go, that's kind of what we're looking for. Should be nice and smooth. Make sure there's no dust or particles on there. And then same thing, clean up your CPU. Again, I strongly recommend using rubbing alcohol because it doesn't have any liquids. Make sure that there's no drops. And as you can see, there's actually quite a bit of goop here, and there's almost no thermal paste here. But we should remove the old stuff. Why? Because it's kind of, as you can see right there, it's actually started drying up and caking up already. When it fully dries up, it looks like it actually looks solid. It becomes solid when it fully dries out. And if you haven't done this to your CPU for 2 years, you might have like a solid core crust of goop there. And that can cause problems because you won't heat transfer properly. So there we go. That's what we should be looking at, guys. Nice and clean CPU, nice and clean heatsink. You can clean it up a little more. Just give it a nicer wipe down. All right, that's more like it. That's pretty good. I'm okay with that. Pretty shiny and nice and shiny as well. All right, I'm gonna apply some goop now. All right, guys. So this is an example of a thermal paste dispenser. Ooh, my nails look terrible. It usually comes in a little syringe like this. And the whole point is, hold on, focus. There it is. And you basically kind of squirt it out like a syringe onto the CPU. You can do different patterns. You can do X's. You can do all kinds of things. I prefer to actually do a double take. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I use Arctic Silver. I've used it for years. It's great. It's fairly inexpensive. And it's excellent quality thermal paste. You don't want liquid silver, you want Arctic silver. Liquid silver is actually able to transmit electricity, whereas this thing's non-conductive. So if a drop of this stuff ends up on your circuits, you probably won't blow up your computer. But if you get the liquid silver stuff, which is way more expensive, a drop of that can actually conduct electricity. All right, so we got a little cross hatch there. And now what I always do is I'm actually going to take my heatsink, I'm going to plop it down, and I'm going to wiggle it to spread everything around a bit. and I'm going to see what the dissipation is. So it's down. The 2 screws are on. Sorry about that, guys. It's a pain in the butt. So yeah, it's down. 2 screws are on, and I'm just kind of giving it a wiggle. Very hectic here. The whole goal is to see how the goo is going to dissipate underneath. Okay, so that's done. Lift it back up. So now, as you can see, the goo has been dissipating. So there's a bit of goo there and a bit of goo there. Here's the goo dissipation. As you can see, it's not bad, but now I know that I can add a little bit more goop on the sides here. And you do want to spread it around just like I did there. You can use a little trowel or whatever else that you can, but the reason I do it this way is because I want to know how it's going to get onto my fan and the heatsink assembly. All right, so I applied some more goop. Let's reverse it for just a second, put it back down, give it a wiggle on the other side. That looks good right there. Nice coverage, that's what we need. All right. Feeling pretty confident here. Heatsink's installed. And I'm just going to tighten up each of the 2 sides. So I'm going to start on the side here first. Start tightening it up. Again, your heatsink may be differently mounted. If you are upgrading, I recommend the Noctua products very, very much. They're just awesome. So I'm just working the 2 sides here. So I'm going to work this side. A few turns this side, a few turns. And the reason I'm doing this is so that there's even distribution of weight. A few more turns on this side. Go back to this side. A few more turns on this side. Again, back and forth. You don't want to be screwing, especially when you're putting up the actual heatsink assembly holder. You want to slowly distribute your pressure. You don't want to overpressure it. All right, so that's connected. And now I can just clip in my fan itself. So we're good to go.